Hey, everybody, and welcome to Think, Engage, Thrive, our show about entrepreneurship, where we talk about the good, the bad, the funny parts of entrepreneurship, the struggles with doing startups. We've had some great people on, and tonight we've got a different type of startup because most of the time we're talking about either software startups or we're talking about product startups. And companies and guys that have built and men and women that have built these companies. And today we have an early stage company, and Mandy Cordia is on, and she's a retail industry veteran. So she's worked in the corporate retail buying world. She worked for Home Shopping Network, Dillard's, Zappos, and Home Shopping Network. I actually like that whole concept of selling because I think it's a way of getting your brand built very easily. But we'll talk about that, I'm sure, a little bit. But she was most recently with Zappos. But just like everybody, she went through the pandemic. She burned out, I guess, at Zappos, and discovered, throughout her therapy sessions, which we could all use, that life became too busy, that she neglected her passion for giving back. So she started buying gifts and donating charitable causes, but it really wasn't what she really wanted. So what she did was she took her retail talents and she wanted to make a difference. So she built the Kindness Cause, thekindnesscause.com. And she founded that in March 2022. So really not that long ago. So it's still in its early stage. She's making progress. It's good to hear about how people started, the struggles they went through, what they're still going through in order to scale. We've heard it from a number of people about the pivot and hitting walls and things like that. So it'll be good to hear sort of her take on where she's at. But basically you're buying product, and she's giving back, and you're giving back as a purchaser of the product to causes and nonprofit organizations. So it's really kind of cool. And I think personally, in a lot of ways, it's the future of a lot of startups. You see it today that a lot of startups are focused on causal marketing, and I think this is just another step. So let's bring Mandy in and let's hear her story. Hey, Mandy, how are you?
Hi, Phil. I'm good. How are you?
Good. So I kind of gave a bit of an intro about you, but really let's talk about the backstory. What got you to where you wanted to build your own business? You were in retail buying, Home Shopping Network, Dillard's, Zappos most recently, and then you decided to branch out on your own. So why don't you take us through that whole backstory piece of where you were and how you got to here?
Yeah. So, for me, I've always loved fashion. Fashion
Yeah.
it's been something I've loved since I was a little girl. And I knew at a young age that I wanted to go into fashion retail buying. So my first job out of college was with the Home Shopping Network,
Oh, really?
which was a really incredible training ground. I say if you can do that, you can do anything, because it is such a high pressure selling situation where you are literally looking at sales per minute. And when things aren't working, you're pivoting quickly. So I say, if you can do that, you can do anything. So I feel like that was a really great training ground for me.
I
And then
like the
I moved
shopping.
on.
I love the whole shopping channel model. I think, we had a lot of fun. We had Raw Beauty on there. We were there, and in Canada, we helped out Forbes Riley. We helped out Marla Wynn, Nick Varios, a couple other people. And I enjoyed that whole. I found it invigorating watching the sales numbers as they're hitting, and people saying, oh, you have to change this, change the way you're saying this. I loved it. I thought it was
Yeah,
great.
it's really interesting. I mean, I always got asked, "Are those numbers real?" The counters at the bottom. I'm like, "That's real. That's how many are being sold." It's crazy when you see it, and those numbers can get to be pretty big.
Yeah.
And yes, you are pivoting, and I did get to work with a lot of really incredible brands, and it is a really great tool for building brands. I mean, I have friends and who've worked for other retailers, and I know that whenever we would have a brand on air and we would sell out of something, they would tell me that their sales would increase on those
Wow.
items that we sold out on. So if they weren't finding it on the Home Shopping Network because they'd sold out, they would go to other retailers. So
Wow.
it is a huge brand building.
Yeah.
Sure.
So then you went from there. Then
Yeah,
where?
so I had the television retailing experience, which is interesting. And then I moved to brick and mortar for Dillard's in their Southeast division, which was great. And before moving on to Zappos, where I was in e-commerce. So I kind of covered the gamut in retail, going from television to brick and mortar to e-commerce. Um,
I have to say though, I think, and I use the shopping channel experience when I talk to my folks about building ads and talking about brands, because the one thing about the shopping channel is you have very little time to get that message across, and you have to be very clear with that message. And when you have retail stores and it's a little bit different because people are coming in, they're browsing, you've got a different mentality. But when I see a lot of similarities with the shopping channel and what we do every day on e-commerce online. So anyway,
yes,
about brand messaging,
absolutely.
really. So
Yeah, and all three of them, yeah, are definitely very different, and
yeah,
you approach things very differently. But
yeah,
for me, I just fell in love with the e-commerce piece
yeah,
of it, and so I spent most of my career at Zappos, almost 11 years there as a women's fashion apparel buyer, which was amazing. I've got to work with some really incredible brands and travel the world and go to Fashion Week. It's everything that I dreamed of as a little girl. I got to do.
that's fantastic.
Yes. And then for me, I really loved what I do. I was living the dream. I think for me, what changed really was the pandemic.
Yeah,
Is really kind of what put me on this trajectory for entrepreneurship. And I think a lot of people have been in that same situation. For me, I was kind of reevaluating things because the job itself had changed drastically.
yeah,
And I was one of the few who got to keep my job when many were like laid off and furloughed. But that also meant that I was taking on the responsibilities of coworkers who were no longer there, and that I was also taking on, responsibilities outside of my job description just to keep internal operations running.
yeah,
It was a lot of work, a lot of late nights, working weekends, trying to keep my head above water with the workload. And what's interesting is before the pandemic, I tried really hard to, when I was at work, be 100% at work. This was actually really great advice I got from Rachel Zoe when I was pregnant with my first child. I asked her, I'm like, how do you juggle it all and be a mom? And she's like, when I'm at home, I'm 100% at home. When I'm at work, I'm 100% at work or home or work, whatever. She's 100% where she is.
yeah.
And so that's what I tried to do. And my kids rarely saw me working at home, but I did travel a lot. If you ask them where mommy worked, they would always say New York, where it was. But yeah, they rarely saw me working at home. And the pandemic changed that because now they were home also with me while I
Yeah,
had to work.
yeah, yeah,
So I was always working. And, one day I was like working to hit this crazy deadline because there's always a million deadlines in the fashion industry.
yeah,
And I hear my son playing in the other room and something caught my attention. So I get up and I'm like peeking around the corner watching him. And he has a table in his room and he had set up this like makeshift computer out of paper with his stuffed animals around it. And he's pretending like he's working, probably just as he has seen me and my husband do. And then he stopped and he yelled at them to be quiet and that he was on an important phone call and he had work to do.
oh
And
gee,
I was just heartbroken,
oh
like
geez,
just devastated. Like that is not the example I wanted to set for them. And it just killed me that that's what they were taking away from the
yeah,
situation. And so I knew something had to change. And I had crash landed in burnout and I just needed something, but I didn't know what it was. And so I jumped into therapy. Therapy was great because I also I didn't want to just jump jobs to say this was going to solve my problems, because I didn't feel like changing jobs necessarily or going to work for somewhere else was going to solve the problem at hand.
Yeah.
Um, so I jumped into therapy, and I discovered that I had been neglecting my passion for giving back, because prior to having children, I volunteered my time pretty significantly to multiple organizations. And
That's nice.
yeah, I mean, I love that. I love giving back and helping other people. And life had just become so busy being a mom and this
Oh yeah.
demanding career that I couldn't do that anymore. So that's when I started buying gifts for my friends and family, because it was still the pandemic and I couldn't volunteer.
Yeah.
Um, and it was a challenge because as a merchant and a merchandise geared person, I didn't always love the assortment that was offered that donated to charity. And it was often vague in terms of like what people were donating with your purchase and who they were donating to.
Yeah.
And I didn't love that. So I thought there has to be a better way. And I figured with all my years of retail experience, my passion for giving back, like, why not tackle this problem head on and try and help people give back and start meaningful conversations through giving gifts, and also bring awareness to maybe some of these smaller nonprofit organizations in the process.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it's a noble cause. There's no question about it. I think the pandemic, obviously, it changed a whole lot. We've had discussions about it before with a lot of other um, people on, because it really did change. Well, it changed my business. It changed a lot of people's businesses, and um, I there were some good. I thought there were some good things that came out of it, because we were all working from home.
Yes.
Everybody, the kids were home from school. Um, I still had some in high school, and then we had some in college, but everybody was home, and my wife was home working. I was home working, so and we were stuck, right? And four of the kids were still teenagers, and at that point, they sort of push away from you, but we had no choice but to sort of be together. So everybody wanted out of the house after being in the house all day, so we would all walk the dogs and chit chat, and we would sit outside. So in that respect, I thought it was great. The stress of what was going on was sort of, treacherous, because I would wake up every day and there'd just be another crisis, and you're going, oh my God, I don't know how much I can deal with this, but but you have to. So I can imagine with young ones and trying to juggle your job and trying to watch them, because you can't bring anybody into the house to watch them. So you're doing it all. I can imagine it was difficult. And I think a lot of people went to therapy during the pandemic. I certainly needed it.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I'm sure all the therapy businesses were blowing up because everybody was like, okay, we got to do something. I got to talk to somebody. And
It was so different. We've never, we've never experienced anything like that. And to have everything close, and everybody's working from home, it was so different. And you would go out. I can remember, in the early part of the pandemic, going out early in the morning to go and buy stuff at the grocery store, and like there'd be nobody out, nobody on the streets, nobody on the roads. It was just so weird, because I live in an urban area. It's just, where's everybody going? And it starts to play with your mind a bit.
yes.
So I applaud you for getting therapy. I didn't. I actually did. No, I did. I did a bunch of sessions, but I had planned on doing it even before the lockdown. Actually, my first session was right 2 days before the lockdown. But it was definitely a trying time.
It was. It was really interesting. I live here in Las Vegas, and we shut down the strip, and so it was crazy because at night people would ride the strip on their bicycles, and it was kind of fun because when else are you going to ever have that opportunity to do that? There's literally no cars driving the strip, so people just bike down the strip at night, and so I think there were some fun memories and things that came out of it for sure. Um, So, for me, it definitely put me on a path to reevaluate things and what I want, and make some changes in my life. So I don't think it was all negative by any means.
No, no, no. I don't think it was all negative, but I do think, yeah, it caused a lot of people to evaluate, reevaluate. I think a lot of young people, you know, we had two offices before the pandemic, and we had all mostly young people, mostly early 20s. I don't think we had anybody that was over 30, with the exception of some of the developers. But um, and then when they said, okay, we're going to lock down, it was initially maybe I think 6 weeks or 4 weeks or whatever, and these young people started dispersing and going home, right, to their parents and what have you. And then everybody started working remote. We all got the tools together quick to start having meetings every day. And I think a lot of them realized by working at home and then having the ability to just stop at 6 o'clock, not have to get in your car and drive anywhere and just start doing things, going on hikes because everybody wanted to get out of the house. I think everybody started to realize, hey, I do want a more lifestyle driven um, job. I don't
Yes.
want to have to work. And I've always been a proponent of working remotely because my feeling is that people are more productive. You
Mhm.
and I've proven it time and time again because you don't have to get in the car. You don't have to wake up at 6. You don't have to get the kids ready, get yourself ready, get everybody in the car, drop them off at the babysitters or drop them off at school and get everybody to school. And then you got to get down to work. So, 3 hours later, you get into work, you're frazzled, you need some time to decompress. Then you start working, then you leave at 5:30, you got to rush home and you're sitting in traffic. When you don't have all that, you're starting work at 8 o'clock in the morning instead of 9 o'clock. You're working. Maybe you take a lunch, maybe you don't. Maybe you just eat through lunch while you're working. And, you wind up working 9 or 10 hours when you would have only worked, 7, but it were more productive hours.
Yes. I
So,
totally agree with that. And Zappos was really great in the fact that we had, in merchandising, we had already, first, as soon as I started there, it was always a thing where on Fridays, the merchandising team was allowed to work from home. So we worked 4 days in the office and we worked from home on Fridays, which I lived for that because it was so nice to be able to do laundry while I was working and not have to spend a whole day like doing that. Then I could pause in the middle of a project, fold some laundry, come back, which I loved. And yeah, you're not wasting the time driving back and forth. And I did get so much more accomplished on those Fridays. So for us, it transitioning to work from home all the time, it was pretty easy. We already had the systems and tools in place to do
yeah,
that. It was just, we really did have such a really cool office culture that it was sad to kind of miss out on that.
yeah, yeah. So then you start your business, right? How
Yes.
did that start going? The kindness cause.
Yeah. So like well, I mean, it took a lot for me to finally get to the point of actually leaving. I think I'd set like 3 or 4 like quit dates and I kept pushing it back and pushing it back. And then I think it just finally got to the point where, they were both got to where I was gonna have to choose. I couldn't do both. And I was starting to get like so excited about the potential. And I noticed like when I was during the day when I was working on my normal everyday stuff that I was thinking about all the stuff for the business and I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I was like, I feel like that's what I want to be doing, but I can't. I have to do this right now. And so when it came time to make that decision, I was like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm never going to do this. I just have to do it. And
Yeah,
um, part of my thing was also that we work through in therapy is I'm a bit of a perfectionist. Luckily, not so much anymore, but I was like convinced that I had to have everything like just right to launch. And which is that's the quickest way to never launch. So
we
I
talk about that. I think we've heard that a number of times because I'm a big proponent of launching with your minimum viable product. Get out there, figure it out, and then see what you have to change. So I understand. There are a
Yes.
million perfectionists out there, and you're 100% right. If you try to be perfect and you try to launch with everything, you'll never get launched.
No, no. And part of, I feel like part of the process is like, okay, figuring out what doesn't work and adapting and pivoting. And so it was just like, all right, I have to do this. I'm going to do this. And finally taking that leap. So we did it. The hard part also was, I had built a reputation in the retail industry and in with so many brands, but in the nonprofit space, completely unknown. Nobody knows who I am. So it was also hard, a little challenging in the beginning to convince nonprofit organizations to want to work with me. And without having a website or sales or anything to show them. It was one of those things I would go to them and I'd pitch them and I'd be like, I can't promise you anything, but I will promise you I will try. And so it was really cool when I got my first nonprofit to come on board. And they were such incredible partners from day one. In fact, I worked with them on their own merchandise strategy after the fact. But from then, it seems now it's kind of been a snowball effect. In the beginning, I was reaching out, researching nonprofit organizations and kind of figuring out who I wanted to partner with. And then we've had an influx of nonprofit organizations hearing about us and like wanting to work with us now, and constant people reaching out, wanting to partner. So that's exciting.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's better when people come to you.
Yes, absolutely. But yeah, I work really hard to vet the organizations that we're working with. So I go through tax returns and utilize like Charity Navigator and GuideStar and those different sites that evaluate nonprofit organizations to make sure that they're doing what they say they're doing, and people can feel comfortable knowing that they're giving to an organization that the money is actually going to the cause and not salaries.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
So you must have hit some obstacles on the way.
I mean, always. I mean, even just getting nonprofits on board, like I said, was hard because no one knew me in the nonprofit space. But also another challenge that, because I really wanted to focus on Las Vegas when we started. But the challenge that I'm up against is, as a new business and starting out and not knowing how much money we will raise, is that, I'm up against the casinos who are writing very large checks to these nonprofit organizations. And so they're like, we're good. We're good. We don't want to have to do any work for, this money. Because we don't have to with anyone else. So, that was a bit of a challenge at first.
Yeah, that's not something you hear about every day.
No.
Your challenge is somebody else is bigger than you giving more money.
Yes. Yeah. So that was something we've overcome. This year, we're really focused on nonprofits here in Nevada. But we worked with charities in California and Missouri and Alabama and all over. So it's growing, which we're excited about, and people are starting to hear about it and they're excited. And so some other challenges, let me think. For one, I think is also getting the word out. I think where I've dropped the ball in the beginning is I didn't have I'm a merchant. I always had a team of people who would handle the marketing part. So learning all of that is I had I think a base, a foundation of knowledge when it came to all the different areas of business. But in terms of like actually running marketing campaigns myself, that was something completely new. And figuring out how I wanted to approach that also. I feel like that's where I could have done a better job in launching. Even now, I'm kind of still figuring all that out. And we've been focused mostly on like PR opportunities, social media, which, as you know, social media can be hard with algorithms changing all the time. So there's always challenges we're trying to work through and navigate, but that marketing has also been a huge obstacle.
Well, the problem, I tell this to everybody, everybody's always looking for a quick, solution to marketing, and there's no silver bullet. That doesn't
Mm-mm.
exist. And there's guys out there that run ads that'll sit there and say, I can 10x your sales, I can 10x your ROI, I can do all this stuff. And you can't promise. Nobody can promise anything. Nobody can guarantee anything. And they're just scammers out there, which make the problem worse. But the real key is figuring out what your core message is and why are you different than everybody else, and just figuring out how to get that message out, even on social. uh,
Mhm.
social is good for social is good for this type of thing, in that people can latch on to that message. It's just a question of putting effort into it. Ads today are very difficult, and you can spend a lot of money on ads and not get what you want. And a lot of it has to do with, you think about this, customer has to see an ad 7 times before they think about taking action. So you've spent all this money running ads, and there's no efficient ad platform out there.
Mm-mm.
They're all the same. You run them on Meta. Amazon's a little bit different, but you can run them on Meta. You can run them on Google. You can run them all over the place, and you can go broke running ads. So it's
Yes.
really about trying to figure out a way to break through the clutter. And I tell the story not to brag, but as sort of a lesson. When we started the razor business, we were up against everybody, right? Gillette, Schick, all those guys. Plus, um, there were some startups as well as us, and we were out there for a year and doing the basic things everybody does: SEO, running ads, trying to get press, things like that. And it didn't do much. It did all right, but it wasn't what we needed. And so I'm a baseball fan, and
Me too.
there was a pitcher for the San Francisco Giants called Brian Wilson, and his name was Brian Wilson, and he had this epic beard, and he was a great pitcher, and he got Tommy John surgery, and they traded him to Los Angeles Dodgers, and he was going to pitch for the first time in a year, and everybody was anticipating it because he was a great pitcher, and so I had the idea to offer the guy $1 million to shave with our razor, shave his beard off with our razor. And so all we needed was for his people to respond to us and say, we'll run this by Brian. That's all I needed. And once I got that, I gave it to the PR firm and said, we're in discussions with Brian Wilson to shave his beard for $1 million. And it exploded everywhere. We were on every Sports Illustrated, Washington Post. We were getting interviewed by everybody, radio, television, all over the place. Japan, France. It was ridiculous. And everybody was outraged at us that we would offer a guy $1 million who's already a millionaire. And how could we do such a thing? And then the other people, it's the early days of social media, and we had Facebook and Instagram, and all these people were sending in pictures of their body parts with a price tag. I'll shave this for 10,000. I'll shave this for 50,000. So it became funny. But the point was that all of a sudden, like, the traffic to the site went through the roof. We got tons and tons of orders, and that launched us. But it broke through the clutter. It didn't cost us anything really but time. And then about a week and a half later or so, TMZ catches Brian Wilson coming out of a gym in LA, and they say, are you going to take the $1 million to shave your beard? And he said, I'm not shaving my beard off for anybody. Well, the whole thing exploded again. So it just happened again. And it was hysterical. So I tell people that because sometimes you have to think about doing something a little bit crazy to get people's attention, to break through the clutter, because everybody can run ads and everybody can say the same thing you can. And there's a woman, Sally Hogshead, who we used. I don't know if you know who she is, but look her up when you get a chance. She's got a great website. She has a great book. And she says, you can be a lot of things in this world. She's a great marketer. So you can be a lot of things in this world, but in order to be successful, you have to be different. And you always want to try and figure out a way to be different, and a way to do something different. And have a little fun with it. There's nothing in the rule book that says we have to be totally serious. As long as you're not harming anybody, as long as you're not causing any pain or aggravation or stealing or any of that. If the Brian Wilson thing was just funny when you look back on it. It was funny for him. It was funny for his people. He enjoyed it just as much as we enjoyed it because people had forgotten about the guy, and all of a sudden
Yeah.
he's back in the news. And so it sort of goes both ways. But we knew he'd never take the $1,000,000, and we didn't have it to begin with. So.
I love that.
But so I tell this to our brand clients. I tell it to anybody, getting traffic to your site, getting sales today is so difficult because it's such a crowded marketplace. You have to do something to stand out. You have to do
Yes.
something that says, so it's something to think about while you're asleep tonight.
Yes, I absolutely will.
I don't know. The other thing I'll say is that babies and puppies always sell everything. So,
Yes.
babies and puppies.
Yes.
Yeah. So back to you. Anyway, I didn't mean to steal your thunder, but so now you've got this product strategy. That's got to also be difficult, right? Because you got to convince people to believe in you enough to let you have the product and let you sell their products, and then print on demand, things like that. That's that's always a challenge as well, and I'm sure that the margins are very slim in those categories.
The margins are slim, and then when you're donating to charity on top of it, it makes it real challenging.
Yeah.
Coming from the retail side, one of the things that was important to me is I didn't want to be competing on price. I feel like when you compete on price, you lose every time.
Every time.
Every time you can't win. So that wasn't a strategy I wanted to take at all. I wanted it to be something that was different, something that maybe you couldn't get anywhere or everywhere. We do buy from other brands, or so we're not creating everything myself, but I try to create as much as possible, which is interesting because coming from the buying side, that wasn't something I wasn't creating. I was analyzing numbers and reviewing past performance and business, and so using that creativity is something that's new that I haven't done in a long time, but I find that I really enjoy that as well. So I feel like it's a good balance for me, which is also interesting. I do kind of try to schedule my days based on my feeling creative today. Maybe today is a day where I'm like working on product or doing social media content or doing things that are more creative, or is it today a day where I just need to like buckle down and do all the things I don't like accounting and that's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I when you're first starting out, especially when you don't have a lot of resources and you don't want to spend a lot of resources, you get pretty good at things like Canva and
Yes.
iMovie.
Yes. Yes. I mean, I would say my least favorite part of being an entrepreneur is the social media part of it. It's
Really?
just, yes, I'm not a huge fan. It's so much to try and like come up with all the time. That's a full-time job in itself. Coming up with everything, and it's just my least favorite part.
I would think that would be your favorite part because there's the chance to get to tell your story, right?
Right. Right. But I tend to go back to the product, and that's really my favorite part.
Yeah. Oh,
And the partnerships as well. I feel like one of my strengths as a buyer was really building relationships, and so that's also where I feel like I love that part of the business, is growing these relationships with these different charitable organizations as well.
well, when you think about it, right? I think you're thinking too hard about social media. And I think when you think about it, people want on social media, they want you to be authentic and they want to hear the story. And that's what they
Yes.
connect with. So if you got on there, and just focused on a product and why you like that product, almost like what was that catalog? They used to joke about it on Seinfeld and the Peterman catalog,
Oh,
where
yes.
they did these paragraphs about the product, telling the story. But when you think about it, if you did stuff like that with a quick video, again, content today on social is so much more video driven,
Yes.
and when you can just set up your phone and start, talking to yourself in your phone and describing a product in 45 seconds, it sort of feeds that what you know about the product. And then you could do the same thing about why you chose this charity, because people, or why you chose this nonprofit, because people want to hear that. So I
Yes.
think you're thinking too much about social, when really the skill set that you have about why you pick these nonprofits and why you like this product probably fits right into what your social strategy might be. I don't know. I'm just saying. I'm not,
You know what, Phil? I think you're onto something here. You're probably right.
I just, sometimes the simplest answer is best, and don't
Yes.
try and overthink about what social is. Social, if you think about it, if you think about it, it's the shopping channel, right? Meets social media, because that's all you're
Yes.
doing is 45 seconds, right, of a quick video where you're holding the product, you're talking about the product, but you want to do it in an engaging way. You want to
Yes.
do it in a way that people feel like you're not just trying to sell them, that you're authentic, and which you are. You come across as authentic, not as somebody who's just trying to make a buck or try and sell anything she can.
Right.
I think you could probably plan that out, and you could do it in the morning. And the beauty is, you don't have to make it a big production. You sort of sketch out what you want to say, and you do it in 45 seconds. You get yourself a little stand, one of those little ring lights, and you can do it every morning, 45 seconds, and you push it out on social.
Yes. You're right. I think the thing that I struggle with also with the social media part of that is that I don't like to be on camera. So maybe I just got to get over that.
I After these shows, my folks do it, but we take it apart and we like pull clips out, and then we run them on YouTube shorts and reels and things like that. And I can't stand it, because I can't stand looking at myself on camera. So if I can get over it, you can get over it, because I don't I don't think I have the same look as you do, let's say, on camera.
I mean, I remember one time when I was at the Home Shopping Network, uh, they were missing a model, and they were like, "Mandy, can you do it?" And I'm like, "No,
Yeah.
no, please, I don't want to be on camera." Luckily, the model showed up just in the nick of time.
Yeah. No, I understand that. Nobody likes, it's really difficult. It is honestly difficult to put yourself out there, but you have to say to yourself, and I say this to myself all the time, because I do things that are uncomfortable for me, because I like the fact that I have a team of people, and they can talk to the clients, and they can keep things rolling, and I get involved when I have to, and it, but I have to tell myself all the time, it's my business. This is what I chose to do. And I have to put myself out there, because I look at what people do, and they're always out there promoting themselves and pushing themselves. And I think I need to do more of that, but I get uncomfortable just like you do. I think, oh my God, my hair doesn't look good. I'm not wearing the right shirt. Why do I look washed out? What's going on? Oh, I look this way. And I criticize myself. And then sometimes I just go, you know what? Who cares?
Yes. I've done a much better job. I would say, becoming an entrepreneur has forced me to put myself out there in ways I
Yeah,
haven't had to do
it always does.
before. And I feel like I constantly live in a state of being uncomfortable, which is new, but it's also where I feel like I'm growing the most because
Yeah.
I'm forcing myself to do things that I wouldn't normally do and put myself out there. And so, in that regards, like it's been really helpful in being an entrepreneurship and forcing me to do things and
Yeah.
put myself out there.
I, I have, I founded my first business when I was 27, and I went on to found other businesses. And some of those businesses, we had to go and raise capital. And that is a game unto itself. That can take you, that is a numbers game of going out and talking to 1,000 people and hearing 999 no's. And at first, when you do it, you walk out of some of these meetings and you go, oh my God, I'm so terrible. I'm a horrible human being. They didn't like what we were talking about. This is a failure. Oh, these guys, and you sit there and you have these conversations with yourself in your head. And then finally, one day you sort of realize, you know what? It's not true. I can't believe it. I just have to keep going forward. And so I understand being an entrepreneur has made me a little bit more aggressive, I think. But when it's your butt out there, and if you truly believe in what you're doing, you
Yeah.
just you keep pushing. You keep pushing that
Yes.
boulder up the hill, because when you get to the top one day, it's just going to roll on its own after that,
Yes, absolutely.
or it's
I
going to
think
crush you.
well, that's the risk we take as entrepreneurs, right?
It's gonna it could roll back on you, but yeah, that is the risk you take. Yeah.
Yes. It's easier to be in a buyer or to be in a corporate setting where the great thing about my last job is that I felt like I was an entrepreneur, that I got to run my own business within the company and it wasn't my money on the line, which is the best way to learn.
Oh yeah.
But, I felt like now when it's mine, I definitely look at things differently and I analyze things differently and I'm thinking far differently than I ever did before, in terms of like growth and the risks involved. And yeah, it's scarier to take the risk, but I feel like more rewarding when you do.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is much scarier because it's your money. If you
Yes.
fail, it's gone. There's nobody there to catch you when you fall, so to speak. But and you're right, you have to analyze things a little bit differently. And that's why I say, and I tell people, all the time, that don't, because people immediately want to start running ads. And I think, well, is that really the right thing to do? And even for our clients with some brands, and I'll say, we can spend your money and run your ads, but I don't think it's going to get you any bang for your buck. Maybe we should allocate that money and do this. Today, I think in some respects, there's more opportunity to get the message out. There's more ways to get the message out, but you have to be more creative than ever to get that message out. Because when you look at like social media is different. Each channel is sort of different, right?
Hmm.
TikTok is really about entertainment, people doing wacky things, and that's sort of how you break through that clutter. But that's not really brand focused. I haven't seen a lot of brands on TikTok that are really doing well, with the
Right.
exception of Duolingo. I think does a really good job on
Mhm.
TikTok. But what they're doing is just making funny videos of their mascot in the office, and that's just getting them views so that they stay top of mind. Because then when you want to learn a language, you think Duolingo, because now they've done so well, and those videos don't cost them a lot to do. It's a guy in the owl outfit chasing people around the office and doing silly things. So I think that that's a great strategy, and they've done it well. Some of these other ones, I haven't really seen a lot of brands that are going out there and doing a great job on TikTok. But reels, I think, Instagram, which is really just pretty much reels at this point, and I think YouTube shorts, which a lot of people don't pay enough attention to, uh, not brands, I mean. I think those two platforms have really good potential to get the message out. But again, I think it's about authenticity, and I think it's about being creative. And you could probably pop out a video, and it's about consistency and also understanding
Mhm.
when to pop out those videos. Usually in the morning, before 9 o'clock is a great time, sometimes in the afternoon or whatever. But I think that there's an opportunity, which is a low cost way, because it's just effort to get
Yeah.
your message out.
Yes. I love that. You're right. Absolutely right.
Because I don't think you want to spend a lot of money on ads. It's not going
No.
to do much until you really have. You need to have something that's going to really pop.
Yes.
But social has the potential of somebody looking at you going, "Hey, I really like what this person's doing," and then they share it with their two friends, and then they share it, and then you can sort of build an audience, which will in turn start to build traffic to your site, which will in turn turn into revenue.
Yes.
So my thought for the day.
I love it. These are great thoughts.
Yeah. So where are we going from here? Where are you going from here with we're going into the fourth quarter. We've got I think your website looks very clean and very usable. So now where are we heading? Where are we
Yes.
heading? 2024, fourth quarter, 2024. How far up are we going?
Yeah. So we've got some really exciting things planned. Going into Q4, we have some really great partnerships with different nonprofits. Obviously, every October, we actually start in September, but we do a big campaign for breast cancer awareness. We're also partnering with an organization here in Las Vegas who supports the refugee community, and so we're going to be selling things on the site that are made by the refugees.
Oh wow, that's nice.
And then uh, from there, we're building on some partnerships for 2024. Outside of just nonprofits, we have some different partnerships in terms of like corporate gifting, some similar businesses actually to what we're doing, and partnering with them on some different projects, but it'll be partnering with other businesses that actually give back. So there's a lot of things in the works for 2024, and just continuing to build the momentum and get the word out, and continue to drive traffic as much as we can.
I would think that the nonprofits themselves might be interested in helping to push your product, to push your website and stuff, because they benefit from that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And they do a really good job of doing that themselves. We work on that at the beginning, but they're also really great at pushing and helping us spread the word with all of their members and donors. And so we definitely see a lift from that as well, which is great. But we also have to be really careful with what we do. There are definitely laws and things regarding that with cause marketing. So
Yeah,
we have to tread lightly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to go to prison.
No.
And you don't want to get shut down. Yeah, I think you could have a lot of fun with it too. You take the pressure off of yourself, take a step back and think about how you can have some fun doing that. Because I think sometimes we get so wrapped up in, it happens to me all the time. We get so wrapped up in business, and we're sitting there, banging our heads, and we forget to just go out and have fun with the business and do something silly, and see what happens. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, no blood was shed. So
Yes.
no one
Yes.
lost life.
I think that's also been something I've been trying to be focused on, especially coming out. The reason I left the corporate world, being burnt out, I definitely don't want to burn myself out with the business. And it's like, I started this so I could have a more flexible schedule and not be so like overwhelmed. So I'm really trying. It's really easy to get overwhelmed and bogged down with everything being a one-woman show, but I really try to make an effort to not get so like
Stressed
about
Yeah.
it, and to have fun, and to just continue to make steps forward every day. I think that's the one thing we can do. I always said when I was a buyer that I was paid to do two things: to make decisions and problem solve. And so every day I start my day with what problem am I going to solve today?
Yeah.
And then I feel like at least no matter, sometimes there's multiple problems, but sometimes it's one problem I solve. But every day I walk away feeling like I accomplished something and I move forward when I do that. So that's what I'm going to continue to do.
That's interesting because um, I tell young entrepreneurs that all the time. When they first start out, when they first launch their business, I say every day, just think about two things. One, how am I going to get more orders today than I did yesterday? And then the
Yes.
second thing is, what's the problem I'm trying to solve today? Because if you can only focus on one problem at a time.
Yes.
And you always want to focus on getting orders. And you think about how can I get it? What can I do? Can I get on a television show? Local news? Can I get in the newspaper? Whatever it is, I always want to think about how I can improve my sales, and then what's the problem I'm trying to solve today. And then you can stay very focused, because I see a lot of people they have their list and they're going, and I've got 12 people working on this and I've got this, and you go, dude, you're not going to get anywhere. And the other thing I hate with young entrepreneurs, and you find this a lot with engineers, is they're barely launched, and they've got these flow charts and accountability charts, and you're going, you're a startup, that I'm sorry to remind you that you're a startup. This is not going to work. It's going to bog everybody down in checking in and doing paperwork when they should be out, making progress.
Yes.
Yeah, I've seen that happen way too many times. So
Yes.
startups they can be fun and they can enlighten and be enjoyable, or you can just turn them into big stress balls. And I've seen it both ways, and I've done it to myself. Believe me, where
Yes. I mean, it's really easy, I would imagine, to go the stress route. I mean, there's been moments for sure when I'm like, what am I doing?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wake up in the middle of the night. Oh my God, I can't. This is happening. You wake up in a sweat. Yeah, I've been
Yes.
there. I don't do it anymore.
I'm looking forward to that stage.
Yeah. Well, you'll get there. I mean, you have
Yes.
to, like I said, you just got to move forward every single day. Move
Yeah.
forward. And really, that's the message, I think, is to any entrepreneurs that are out there, is focus on moving forward every day. Whatever you have to move forward, solve one problem, focus on one problem, and try and move your business forward. Whether that's getting more sales or getting more attention, whatever it is.
Yes.
Well, we're about out of time, so it's been a pleasure chatting with you, and I hope that you have a great fourth quarter. I think that we'll be keeping in touch and watching. I'm interested. I expect to start seeing some videos popping up on social media.
Yes, I promise I will do videos just for you. I will get those up. And thank you so much for having me, Phil. This has been so fun, and it's been so great to catch up. And I really appreciate having this opportunity today. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. My pleasure. I think it's great. I love what you're doing, and I think that good luck, and I think you're gonna be great.
Thank you.
All right. So I'll talk to you later.
All right, sounds good. Thanks, Phil.
Bye.
Bye.
So I think that what Mandy left us with, which was a great piece of advice for startups, was look, it's every day you can't do everything, and when you're a startup, you're trying, right? You're trying to do everything. Trying to do social media, you're trying to run ads, you're trying to do creative, you're trying to work on the site. You can't do it all. So you pick your battle. So every day you focus on one thing that you're trying to do, but never forget that you still have to move your business forward. So I think that this is this was a great show, and I think she's onto something. Causal marketing, and I think the future of e-commerce, where people are getting involved with nonprofits, is going to be a fantastic piece for us. So got a couple of commercials, and as always, go to my website, philmasiello.com, and I've got a free planning book that you can download. Just put in your email address, and you can download it for free. It's a great little planning tool for any of you aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to build a business, or you just want to figure out if it's possible. It's a very clean process. It's not like some of those ones that you see that you pay money for. This is not overly complicated. So again, go to my site, and next week we've got another great show. We're going to talk AI with one of the biggest experts out there. So tune into that, and we'll leave you with that. Have a good night.
Hey, how you doing? My name is Greg Russell. I'm the host of TechnologyTuesday.com. You can find us on the Conscious Business TV network every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for the latest resources to help you make more money in your business. Join us on E360 TV. Come on.